Good evening, everyone. My name is Laarni Rosca Dacanay. I'm the chair of the PBS SoCal Community Advisory Board. I'm also one of the volunteer organizers of tonight's event. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Michelle Sugihara, Executive Director of CAAM, the Coalition of Asian Pacifics in Entertainment. Welcome, everyone.
All right, so we're going to kick off the program tonight. Thank you for your patience because drinks and food will be served after all of this is done. So just please be respectful during this time. We're about to start our programming with some great speakers. We have some more remarks that we'll save for the end so we can kind of move on to programming. But we are a volunteer organization. We are a coalition of different Asian American creative leaders within the space, just trying to create space here at Sundance and other major film festivals for Asian and Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander artists. And so it has been great. Where's Francis? Francis, you have two. Bro, check the WhatsApp. Everybody give it up for Francis Cuyado. He is the Executive Director of Visual Communications, which is one of the beginning, origin partners of creating this event. It started with 5 people in Park City. You want to say hi?
Hey folks, sorry, I'm just got back from Tats Film, just still experiencing it, but I'm glad to see you all today. Thank you for being here, and Benji, back to you.
Okay. All right, so we have more remarks we'll save till later. We'll get moving on the program. I'm going to hand it off to Laarni to introduce our first speaker. So give it up for Laarni.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Benji. So I am thrilled to open up tonight's evening with a special welcoming remarks from Ianetta Lei. She is the Senior Manager of the Indigenous Programs at the Sundance Institute. And Ianetta has been a great friend, an ally, and honorary Pinai. But she is, more importantly, her work, she helps to shepherd emerging Indigenous filmmakers and helps to run the labs, the fellowships, and the intensives. So if there are any Native Hawaiian or Indigenous filmmakers in the crowd, raise your hand. Okay, and if you don't know Ianetta, make sure you see her. And then for those with deep pockets and would like to support the Indigenous programs at the Sundance Institute, please also see Ianetta. So, Ianetta, welcome.
Hi, I don't even know. I don't feel special enough to be up here, but just wanted to say thank you so much and welcome to Sundance Film Festival 25. And as Laarni had mentioned, I'm the Senior Manager for Indigenous Programs at Sundance Institute. I'm originally from Waialua, Hawaii. I love these spaces because it is such a fun community for me. I feel like I get the best of all worlds, and I feel that API month is for me because I'm Pacific Islander and Asian, so I get the best of all the things. And I also get to celebrate and see, friends and just feel so welcome, even though, there are people that went to Punahou and my rival high school, but just even seeing Andrew on, who was a creative advisor at our Native Labs, or hearing about the success of Chad's film, who I got to experience his work while I was working with Pacific Islanders and Communications with Mele Murals, and all the crossover between our Asian American communities and our Pacific Islander communities is so special to me, and I think that's why I get to. I feel so lucky and grateful to be able to do my dream job and work with Indigenous communities. But yeah, I just want to say welcome and keep doing what you're doing and cultivating a community and just helping tell our stories. That's the main thing. I got into film through Sundance, just running into a film called Stones, which is a short film by Tai Zanga, who was a Native Hawaiian filmmaker. And I realized, I was like, wow, Native Hawaiians are telling stories in Native language, and there's people want to see it, So seeing it at Sundance and being able to experience that was really special to me, and I am committed to helping others tell their stories as well. So if you have any questions, let me know. I'd love to meet you. Sorry, I'm getting emotional. Aww. But it's pregnancy brain. So anyways, thank you guys so much. Enjoy, and thank you for having me, and enjoy the panel, enjoy festival. Take care.
Give it up one more time for Ianetta Lei. Thank you all. Okay, it's now we're moving into our panel discussion. We have some incredible folks here who have projects at Sundance 2025. Again, this event started on Main Street, or was it Main Street? David will tell you that tidbit, but with 5 people. From 5 people in 2002 to this today is pretty incredible. To have representation, to have our stories told, to have them in the full depth and breadth of what we have as a community and growing. So I'm really excited to introduce our moderator for the evening. We have Don Young, who's the Director of Programs for the Center of Asian American Media. He's been responsible for building CAAM's stature as a national producer of documentaries and independent feature films. He is a member of the documentary branch of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences and the National Academy of Academy of Television Arts and Sciences. So everybody, please give it up for Don Young, our moderator for tonight.
Thank you. Well, first of all, everybody, welcome. This energy is very palpable. I think we see Bob, who all of us, there was a third act screening, which in many ways I think feels like the culmination of community and what we all stand for. So I think, I want to try to build upon the energy of how do we as a community really fortify one another. I was writing some notes in preparation for tonight, just really briefly to frame that whether in narrative or documentary, independent or commercial, it's a tenuous moment for our community. From the fires to the strikes to the elections to the dismantling of strategies that explicitly value our stories, many of us worry whether we can continue this. Now, why are we having this panel? Because these filmmakers, these 3 very specifically, show us the way. They tell the stories. They upend the Asian American narrative, unlike what we've ever seen. And most of all, they provide us hope, right? So let me bring up the panelists. Andrew on. And then I'll have everybody, I think all these filmmakers, quite frankly, their films and their reputations precede them. But I want them to each introduce their films and talk about why they're here. And then MEERA, if you can come up. Welcome. And then finally, but last but not least, CHHEANGKEA. So we only have one microphone, so we're going to pass this around. I talk fast, but also we have 40 minutes. So I really want to make sure that with this incredible group that we hear about the unique sensitivities they bring as filmmakers. Again, this question of how you subvert the understood Asian American narrative. And whether it's conscious or not, you all are just amazing. But then also, how do we reconstruct how people think Asian Americans build community and do things different moving forward? So let's start. We'll start with Andrew.
Hi, everyone. My name is Andrew Ahn. I'm the co-writer and director of The Wedding Banquet, which premieres tomorrow. The film is I'm the fool who has remade an Ang Lee movie. But we call it a reimagining. And it's about 4 friends, 2 couples who live together in Seattle. One couple, Lee and Angela, are trying to have a baby, going through expensive IVF treatments. The other couple, Chris and Min, are wrestling with the question of marriage. And in order to stay in the country, Min gets married to Angela, and then in exchange pays for Lee's IVF treatments. And the scheme is kind of put to the test when Min's grandmother comes from Korea to throw them a big, lavish Korean wedding. And so the film is about chosen family, about growing your family, about home.
My name is MEERA. I directed and co-wrote a little movie called Didn't Die. That's in the midnight section. A lot of our team finally is in town tonight. You can hear them. The movie is a zombie film about a podcast host who's trying to keep her podcast going through the apocalypse. And it stars Kieran Deal, Katie McEwen, who's here, Samrat Chakrabarti, who's here. And it's a labor of love that we're really excited to premiere in the midnight section. It's a zombie movie, but it's not your typical zombie movie by any stretch, and we're excited for people to see it.
I'm CHHEANKEA. I'm the writer-director of Grandma and I Who Play Favorites, which is in the shorts program too. And it's about a Cambodian grandma ghost who is trying to save her gay grandson. I revealed too many spoilers that I did not want to say. And like you, it's not a typical ghost story. It's very lighthearted and yeah, all about hope as well.
Maybe, why don't we stay with you, CHHEANKEA? Like, so you talk a bit about being Cambodian and how in the community history was lost and stories could be told. Can you talk a little bit about your voice as a filmmaker, what you're trying to achieve as a Cambodian American filmmaker?
So I didn't think I would be a filmmaker. My dream growing up, I was like, I want to be an architect, and I think that was a bridge. I'm sorry, I feel like I'm saying stuff about my upbringing, and my mom is here, and it's weird. So I think growing up, you're like, you know, as a Asian person, you're faced with like the path that's like, you know, what people want. Like my mom wanted me to be a doctor, and then or a doctor or a lawyer, and for me, I was always into like the arts, and I think architecture was kind of like the in-between of those, and I went for it and found it extremely isolating and lonely. You're in studio like all the time, and so I just I didn't feel connected to it. And I was talking to you earlier that in college I joined a Bollywood dance team, and that was when I first started telling story, even though it was through dance. And then I was like, oh wow, okay, there's a way that you can connect as humans to one another. And then I just kept thinking about who I am, who I was as a person, and you know, being an immigrant from Cambodia, and then realizing that there's this space in cinema where Cambodia doesn't really exist. There's been very, very few films coming out of Cambodia, and so I was like, I think that's your life purpose. and so I found my way into film school. That's how I thought the only way I could do it, and I think that was the best decision I ever made. And luckily, there are other Cambodians making films, and without them, I wouldn't be here.
MEERA, so I researched, you know, in prepping for this conversation I saw with Miss Marvel, you sent a letter to John Bon Jovi, right? and so there's some context. There's an interesting framing because you know, for their music that you said, in particular, maybe if you could talk about, but that how their music speaks, there's an urgency about it that, or the spirit of how it speaks for immigrants, right? Can you talk about that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it was. So I'm trying to get into like how like these storytellers provide a very different way in for us to think about the American experience and the Asian American and the immigrant experience.
Yeah, I mean, that was a particular kind of that felt particularly strong when we were making Miss Marvel, because that character was this young girl that was just obsessed with pop culture, and specifically obsessed with the Avengers, specifically obsessed with Captain Marvel, and you know, she just like was so obsessed with it that she like, you know, just wanted to be like them, and then one day wakes up and like has these powers, and it is like, you know, a superhero herself. And so, you know, like that was always a metaphor for us and for the creators of the comic of like, you know, being a young kid of immigrants in America and just being inundated with the pop culture, and just it being the way you learn to become American in some ways. And certainly for me, growing up in New Jersey, Bon Jovi was part of my pop culture diet in a way that was really not really a choice. You kind of had to join that club. And so I really think American pop music around the world it has such you know, deep influence and impact on people. And so I think that we really tried to explain that to him. I'm not sure if that's why he gave us the rights to use his music, or if it was just Kevin Feige making a phone call. I don't really know actually how we ended up getting the rights, but I did write a letter for that reason.
And then maybe with Andrew, as I was prepping, is Wedding Banquet the first time an Asian American film has been remade? I'm curious about that. Is this what does that mean in the context of an Asian American what do you think about that, that question? Or I'm curious, what are your thoughts about that?
You mean it's like an Asian American film being remade into an Asian American film for the first time? Is that, I don't know if that's true.
But I'm curious, is it the first time an Asian, sort of this important part of vocabulary of Asian American language and film gets remade? Is that a historic moment in the timeline?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I'll say this, I do think of, Ang Lee's The Wedding Banquet as very historic and very personally so for me. I watched that film when I was 8 years old because my mom saw it at a video rental store, and she was like, "Oh, this is the movie with Asian people that white people are watching. We should see what it's about." My parents are here too, by the way. But and not knowing that it was a queer story, and then we watched it as a family, and as a 8-year-old kind of nascent gay boy, it really kind of blew my mind, and it really resonated with me, and in many ways, that was the first gay film I'd ever seen. And the fact that it was a gay Asian American character, I think, is really significant, and probably did so much to kind of help form my identity, and then also what kind of stories I want to tell as a filmmaker. And so, to have the opportunity to reimagine it, felt incredibly special, also totally stressful. I was on set just so stressed out because I was like, oh, Ang Lee's gonna watch this. I hope that, that whether it's a reimagining, a remake, that our work continues to inspire each other, and that we tell more and more stories about our communities, that feel authentic and have beautiful insight and nuance.
And then maybe if you could, we'll stay with you. Why were you drawn specifically to want to make this film? And I'm curious, maybe you just answered it as an Asian American, right? But what drew you to your most recent film?
Is my boyfriend in the audience? Yes. He is? Yes. Oh no. Hi. I mean, oh no, I'm gonna cry. I think the film for me is so much about how I want to get married and I want to have kids, and just what that looks like as a queer person. There's a line in the film where Kelly Marie Tran's character tells Lily Gladstone's character, it's well, if it happens, it happens. And it's oh no, it doesn't for queer people. We have to be incredibly intentional about having children, and so any sort of hesitation becomes an obstacle, and so I kind of use this film to explore my own feelings, and maybe to help me understand my partner's feelings, about really important and thorny subjects, and so it's weirdly personal for a remake, but I think that was the only reason why I felt I could do this, that I could take on that challenge, because I had a reason to make it myself.
All right, so I've been told we have 35 minutes, not 40 minutes, right? So I'm gonna race through to solutions, right? I mean, all of you, as I was preparing, what's really so powerful about how you three specifically tell stories as Asian Americans, not trying to lock you in as Asian American filmmakers, but that there's this lens in the context of this conversation. And then what emerged to me was through how so beautifully you specifically bring this texture and perspective to the stories, that it's the more specific Asian American story is actually how we expand the breadth of what can be an Asian American narrative, if that makes sense, right? But what can we as community, from your experiences as filmmakers, begin to think to do? Like, how can we unleash more of you filmmakers? Like, I'm just curious about your thoughts of, like, in this space, what can we do to support the makers, but what can we do differently as a community to change that narrative of how Asian Americans work? You know, like, what's the new foundation we can envision together? MEERA, I'd like to hear from you first. Yeah.
All right, real quick, how to solve this problem? It's a big one. This is a whole McGiller for me. I mean, the reason I make movies is because I didn't see myself in the media growing up, and I was like, well, I got to be part of some. I just felt called to be part of something that could help change that, and slowly feel like I've been able to be a part of a few things. This movie was made purely just like self-generated, made with me and my friends from film school, just kind of coming together again and just making something really small. And it's a black and white zombie movie centered on a South Asian family. And I really was inspired by this Jordan Peele adage of making the movie you want to see, you know, just like that. What is that thing that, like, that gap in, like, your kind of, like, mind of the media landscape of the kind of representation that you'd like to see? And for me, it was like seeing more of us in genre films, you know, and seeing more of us in horror films, also seeing more of us in these kind of explorations of genre, which is really what this movie is. I don't know how to make that a workable solution for the business, because it has to be financed and really supported in some way, in an ongoing way. But I think holding on to this belief system that, like, if you make the movie you want to see, if you make the movie that you feel like is not out there, that you've been kind of like hoping somebody would make, and you feel like you can be the one to make it, if you just hold on to that belief, I think that's one way to move forward. And I just think that, like, it's already gotten so, I think it's not, you can't, like, kind of sit on the fact that it's so different than it was when I was growing up. There's so much progress has been made, and I joke about this all the time, but I think it's somewhat true. If Mindy Kaling had a TV show on when I was growing up, I don't know if I would be even doing this, you know, because I would have had something. But there was literally nothing, you know, growing up. And, you know, All American Girl came out, and, you know, like, that was like a brief moment. And, you know, we all have those kind of, like, posts, you know, those, like, kind of landmarks when we were growing up of, like, things that came out, Bend It Like Beckham, but it was never consistent. Now we have this explosion of a media landscape with streaming and everything that's, like, created, like, a whole new landscape. So I guess I would also say we shouldn't undervalue how much progress we've made, right?
Yeah.
Big question. I will say I do not have a solution. I came into film, like, I think at a very specific time, like around 2016, when I finally decided to switch and try to go to grad school. And I feel like it happened at the right time when this topic of representation in Hollywood and stuff was starting to happen. And I feel like now I feel like me as who I am is kind of the result of that. And so I'm still trying to figure out how to make my first feature, and I'm still learning what waterfall is and blah blah blah, you know. So I don't really have I think for me just in terms of being an Asian American and queer filmmaker, the struggles that's I've been kind of, there's this complex of there's this gradual journey that you go on as filmmakers, and I think when you first make works, they're mainly being seen and being judged as like an identity thing, and I love that spaces like this happens, and I'm like so grateful to be here and to be around in this room, but also at the same time there's that struggle of like, well, you know, like I want my work to also be seen by other people. It's not just an Asian work, it's not just a queer work, and I don't know, so I feel like this year at Sundance right now, I'm experiencing it for the first time, that I'm like, yeah, I'm a filmmaker who happens to be the other stuff, and I don't know what that holds in the future, but I hope I can be a part of the way forward of I don't know, people making more Cambodian films and Asian films and gay films and all the other films. Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. I'll fight for it.
But can you talk a little bit about how you made your film, the partnerships? Like there was a way in which you produced your film.
The Graham and I film.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it was my thesis film at NYU, and so I mean, I said already, the ultimate goal was always to make my feature film, which takes place in Cambodia. That idea was why, like, I started making films, and it focused on this period of Cambodia that after the war that hasn't really been captured, and you know, I think you know Cambodia as it is now in its modern time, and you know about it during the war, and it's kind of like this gap that like we don't really get to see and talk about. So that's what I've been trying to make, and so I realized that I need to make a short there. Like, I don't want to call the first time I call action, I was like, I do not want to do that on a feature film. That's irresponsible. So my NYU producer, we met. We learned about Anti-Archive, which is like a Cambodian production company that's making like amazing work that's, you know, being shown all over the world. And so, yeah, I showed up to Cambodia. I met up with them, and they're like a small team of really passionate filmmakers, and it's so exciting that they exist, and like, thank God they exist. And because I didn't know they existed when I started film school, I just went into it with this blind faith that somehow I can make this film by myself. And then slowly you learn how much it takes to make a film. And I'm just, yeah, I'm happy that they exist.
I just want to say, like, CHHEANGKEA's film was incredible. I loved it. I went to see it at Shorts Program too, and this is a little bit kind of not my solution, but maybe just my suggestion for folks is like, watch our films, you know, like watch our films, and honestly, like, you know, like the independent films, you know, I really came of age in the film festival circuit, and if it wasn't for LA Asian Pacific Film Festival, if it wasn't for, you know, Outfest, Frameline, like I wouldn't have the confidence, I wouldn't have the community to do this. And so, you know, go to these festivals, support the independent work, you know, and really like make noise about it. Like, MEERA and I were here in 2016. MEERA was here with Equity. I had Spa Night, you know, and there are 5 of us within U.S. dramatic competition that were Asian American. You know, Jason Liu, Daniel Kwan, and Seoyoung Kim, and like no one talked about it. We didn't get a group photo, like, you know. And I just was like, like, and so it's just, you know, I hope that when the work is getting made, it's out there. You know, you just have to like find it, champion it, support it.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, that's a beautiful story. Well, we have a little bit more time. I still want to put, as the organizational person, I mean, I remember, I won't name names, but, you know, some veteran Hollywood filmmakers would say, Asian Americans, like, one of the rules, which was heartbreaking to hear, was don't trust the Asian in the room, right? It was so, there was such a significant scarcity mentality that one, like that if you were associated by somebody, by another person, with another person of color, that would be seen as a professional liability. And I think what we're hearing from here is this real commitment to paying it forward. I mean, I will always remember, for example, with the amazing writer Viet Thanh Nguyen, he said one of his rules is, whenever I present, I will talk about 5 Vietnamese American artists and pay that forward so that my platform is an opportunity to really expand that. I'm curious if there's anything, you know, and the two of you have worked a lot in TV, and if you think about the power of like Black women showrunners, right? Like, I mean, if you look at I've always thought in the context of Sundance filmmakers, Queen Sugar, if you look at the family tree of how Queen Sugar transformed independent film and the language of episodic, I'm curious if there's anything that you all would add of like one thing that we as a community can do that could just pay it forward. And it's not about calling out, but just something that you've seen that would really, that we can take with us from here. Just each of you, just popcorn it.
I guess I'll start because you both are thinking.
Big question.
Yeah, I mean, like I'll say like mentorship is a big part of my film career, my film practice, you know, and I know that there's only so much that I can do as a filmmaker, you know, to kind of help create a more diverse and inclusive you know, Asian American cinema culture. Yeah. And so it's about, you know, kind of giving the resources to other filmmakers. You know, I was very honored to have read CHHEANGKEA's script like many moons ago, and you know, and then to see it as a short is like so awesome. You know, so I just think that mentorship and then finding an infrastructure to support that mentorship, you know, so that you're not kind of straining the artists, you know, so that like, you know, that there's resources, support, and money, you know, to help that kind of transition, you know, education amongst filmmakers.
Yeah, I mean, I think, mentorship, resources, these groups that Andrew was talking, like these Asian American film festivals are also where I feel like I came of age. Absolutely. And I feel like, I mean, for example, right now I'm writing a show with this filmmaker, it's Anuj Chopra, who's a showrunner for Delhi Crime. And when we met, we both were indie filmmakers that hadn't broken into television at all in the film festival circuit. He came and watched my first film, and he just came up to me afterwards, just completely like out of the blue, and was just like, I really like what you're doing, and like I want to write something with you. And I was like, you know, had just made my first film, and I didn't know kind of how to move forward, and just that gesture from someone who was just a little bit further along than me, and like wanting to pull me along by actually like kind of working on something together. Now, like 8 years later, we're like actively developing this show that he approached me to like work on that, you know, after that experience. And I just feel like that gesture of just like kind of recognizing when there is like a like-minded person in the room with you, and just like kind of being bold enough to be like, well, let's just like kind of, because once you kind of externalize something to one other person, so I think the beauty of filmmaking is that it just takes to like that one first collaborator to then create the weather system to like start to make the movie happen, you know. So I say that to be like, I think that's what you just need to do, is just not be afraid to just like reach out and find your partners in this community to actually start building your weather system, you know. Oh, okay. Thank you for pushing it over. No, thank you. No, thank you.
So yeah, Andrew came to NYU to do like a mentorship, and that's how he got my script, and now we're here. And
I think I gave you not good notes. Like I saw the film and I was like, oh no, it's good you didn't take some of my notes.
Do you actually remember your notes though?
I think I had said something about like there are too many aunties. And that's what I love about your film, is there's so many aunties.
No, I don't know. I haven't been a mentor, so I look forward to that. I think just to bring up, you know, Spa Night, I saw that when it was coming out, and I think seeing a film like that, like as a younger queer Asian American filmmaker, you're like, oh, it is possible. Like, I can go make my films. Like, there is a world that happens, and I think just seeing that, that's a result of like us making stuff, right? So I think for me, in this moment in time where I am in my career, like all I can do is try to keep making, and once I make and it's out there, and hopefully that younger version of me will see it and will keep making things that I wouldn't be able to make, you know? And yeah.
Well, thank you for being patient with my questions. Well, first of all, I want to really acknowledge, I was supposed to thank earlier on, but I think this conversation really reflects APFE and all the decades of work. So I specifically wanted to thank Asian American Media Alliance, CAAP, Coalition for Asian Pacifics in Entertainment, Collaboration, David Magdael and Associates, Laarni, and Visual Communications. Look, we at CAAM see you all as like conspirators and this behind the scenes, like make no mistake about it, parties and talking about each other is irreplaceable. And I think in these times of with social media and the explicit like effort for technology to divide us, there's nothing more precious. I'm sure 10 years from now, something will emerge from this room. And it'll be a beautiful thing. So I just want to thank you all for coming out here tonight. And please, the three of you, continue doing what you do best, telling amazing stories and inspiring all of us. So thank you.